All right. Well, it's time to start. So we're going to continue on our path with the Yoga Sutras. And today's sutra, still doing one at a time. We might combine a few at some point. Today's sutra is the fourth sutra. What I'd love to do is actually remind us of the last two because it's kind of in context. So Sutra 1.2 was the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. So restraining our mind stuff, that's yoga. And then 1.3 says, then, so when you're able to restrain your mind stuff, the seer abides in his own true nature. So when you can stop the mind stuff, you can see your true nature. So today, when we get to 1.4, the Sanskrit, I found a really cool spot on the internet that is reading all the sutras in Sanskrit with their traditional pronunciation. So that doesn't guarantee I'll do a better job, but I'll send you that link if you're curious. So this one in Sanskrit is vritti sarupyam ittaratra, which means, according to this translation, at other times, the self appears to assume the forms of the mental modifications. I'll read that again. At other times, the self appears to assume the forms of the mental modifications. So what he's saying is, when we're not aware of our true nature, we are aware of our vrittis, these mental modifications, which is essentially saying that our thoughts, when they're not about what's real, create our reality. Pretty simple. And pretty profound. If we get this, it can change everything in terms of how we interact with circumstances and people and all of the things around us. At least that's been my experience. Like once I was like, oh, like it's all in my head. Then I could start to realize like, oh, so maybe I can do something about this. So there's some really lovely parts in here. He basically goes through an exercise of not that, where he's talking about, so if we identify with sort of the outer experience of who we are, socially or physically, we're not getting it. So I am not a woman at my true self. I am not a yoga teacher. I'm not a daughter. Those are labels that I put on myself based on the sort of cultural things I've been exposed to, the world that I live in, and my relationship to others. But at my very essence, that's not who my true self is. And, teachers explain this from the perspective of, like, if I think of myself as a wife, let's say, and I get divorced, what does that mean? If I totally identify with that expression of myself, it might mean that I have a lot of difficulty for sure. But it doesn't mean I've ceased to exist. All right, so if we can peel back all of this identification with what's outside of us or in our mind, we can start to get to what's actually the nature of things. And then what he says is that if we like really get down to the nitty gritty at a quantum level, we're energy, right? We're made of atoms. The mouse on my computer is made of atoms. The trees outside are made of atoms. And at a really fundamental level, we're all made of the same stuff, whether we're human or inanimate. There's a fundamental nature of the stuffness, and the stuffness is actually energy. So atoms are energy, electrons circling around protons and neutrons, and that's in all of us. So what he goes on to say is, if we're made of energy and we realize that, and we can learn to understand that, we can start to, this is getting a little bit further, but we can start to see the energy and how it's affecting others, possibly control the energy. I was reading something else this morning, and he gave a really good example of trying to understand this. So if I'm in a car accident and I jump out of my car, I'm okay, but I'm really mad at the other driver, and that's my interaction with them. Their reaction to me is going to be based on the energy that I'm bringing into that experience. If, on the other hand, I'm in a car accident and I'm fine, and I get out, and the first thing I do is ask how the other driver is, let them know I'm okay, and start to interact kind of self to self level as opposed to other level, there's a chance that that interaction will have a different outcome. And it ripples. So if I come to work and I start telling everybody the story about this jerk who ran into me, people will probably pull away a little bit and be like, wow, like there's something going on here that I don't want. But if you go in and you're like, okay with it, like, I did this thing and I got in this accident and luckily nobody was hurt, there's a different experience of the same exact sequence of events. Yesterday when I was here, I was in a good mood, and I had a really just great interaction with everybody that was in here. But on Friday morning, I came in to fix something that wasn't working, and I was a little bit annoyed. And I could watch Jen, my manager, when she came in, just like kind of like step back a little bit. She was like, uh-oh, she's in a mood today. So I think the wonderful thing about this practice is it kind of wakes us up to that. And then hopefully, like, we have choice in the energy that we're creating. The first thing, though, is to actually really start to get this basic understanding that we're energy beings bouncing off each other in a world full of other energy beings. So I'm going to invite us into a meditation today that just is awareness of energy. And it's actually the most fundamental practice. It's the practice that the Buddha was practicing when he was awakened. And it's the practice that I did my 10-day silent retreat. It's Vipassana practice. And it's an embodied practice, which is one of the things I love about it. It asks us to just tune into what's here in our body and start to understand the nature at a very physical level, right? Not too heady, but just like what's actually here. Any questions or comments before we go into the practice? Okay, let's do the practice. So I am going to mute you guys. You're almost all muted anyways. And I'm going to invite you to take a seat, a posture. Doesn't have to be sitting. Last sip of tea or coffee. And close your eyes if that's safe for you. All right, first things first, create your foundation, your seat, so that there's a sense of being supported and grounded. Notice your breath for a moment, just hopefully just as it is without needing to alter it. Picture the breath as light. And when you breathe in, get a sense of the light coming into your body through your nose or your mouth, moving down into your lungs, maybe even beyond. And then when you breathe out, that same form, that light coming out of your nose or your mouth. So you're essentially making your breath more visible mentally, seeing the actual energy of the breath coming in, and visualize it as it goes out. Maybe there's a color. Or maybe it's more of a feeling. Just notice what sense you identify with in terms of the experience of your breath. I like to start with the breath. Breath is energy and it's pretty accessible. So just get a sense of the energy of your breath coming and going. In my mind, I picture the little particles of oxygen and anything else that's coming in and going out. All right, in a Vipassana practice, you draw your attention to different parts of your body and stay in that place until you feel a sense of some energy there. Observe the energy, and you'll then move on from there. Traditionally, we'll start at the crown of our head. So bring your mind's eye to the crown of your head. It's essentially maybe your scalp. And maybe there's a tingle or a feeling of warmth. Allow yourself to rest here and be curious. Maybe you start to feel something. Stay with it for just a moment. Today, Move your attention now to your nostrils, the insides of your nose. Notice the sensations that are present. Notice the place where your breath starts to come into your throat, and the feeling of what's right there. Take your attention across the top of your shoulders. So more subtle sensing into any feeling in the muscles or the joints. As soon as you find that sensation, start to draw your attention down your arms. I'll invite you to do this just kind of at your own pace. If you quickly experience sensation and want to move down towards your hands and then back up towards your shoulders, take your own time. And then keep moving through your body. So whether it takes a while or you move more quickly, you'll take your attention down the length of your body, into your legs and your toes, and then back up to the crown of your head. So that's the path. Take your time. If you get stuck where you can't feel anything palpable, stay for a moment, but allow yourself permission to move on. take a bigger, fuller breath. Do that again, and just nice, big, full breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I want to read this last little bit from this sutra that I think is so powerful. He says, this is Swami Satchidananda in his explanation. It says, but behind all these differences in the self, we never differ. That means behind all these ever-changing phenomena is a never-changing one. That one appears to change due to our mental modifications. So by changing your mind, you change everything. If only we could understand at this point, we would see that there is nothing wrong outside. It is all in the mind. And we're just energy beings in this human body. Does anybody have any comments, insights, something to share from the Vipassana?
Well, I was excited that I had ended up back at the top of my head at about the time that we ended. I thought, "Ooh, I'm on time." I did it right. But I like we're just past where you had just read. If we can cure our jaundiced eye, nothing will look yellow. It's all about our perception. You know, if we want to see our interactions as being negative, well, we can certainly interpret them that way. But if we want to say, oh, well, they must be having a bad day, let's move on, you know, we can sort of create our own reality. It's a nice one.
It is. It's empowering.
In reality, but a nice one.
I think it's so empowering to know that, like, we're creating what we're experiencing, and then we can actually shift it. Yeah. Anybody on the actual technique of Vipassana? Marcia, please share whatever it is.
No, it's not that, but you had said something in a meditation once back in September, a quote from Mark Twain. My life has been filled with terrible misfortunes. Some of them never happened. And, you know, it's the way we look at things, right? So it just kind of, that flipped back to me.
Yep. I do want to speak to the Vipassana for just a minute. Has anybody else practiced this extensively? Robert, have you done Vipassana? Okay. Here's what I'll say about it is this is my experience. Once I get in touch with the energy in my body, I can move more quickly through it, right? So going down to my toes and back up to my head starts to speed up. And I've had some really just super powerful experiences of like really feeling myself as basically an energy body by working with this practice, just on an ongoing basis. And that time that I meditated with the monks out on Isla Hope, the Tibetan monks, I got into that state right away. It was like their energy was drawing me into that place in a way that I hadn't experienced before. It was really powerful. And when I really get into it, it's almost like an oscillation than a vibration, which is like, it's hard to explain that. But that's what my experience has been. So everybody's going to have their own experience of it, but it's a really interesting place. And I'll also tell you this, when you do go and do one of these 10-day sits at a Vipassana center, you know, just like all day long meditating and not talking to anybody. But the teacher on about day 3, he says, don't play with the energy. Because it gets like that. If you get into it enough, you're like, ooh, wow, this is really cool. So, yeah. Anyways, there's just so much in this practice. And I'm grateful to have people interested in sharing.
I do have an observation about that because I've done this practice with you before and had not been able to like feel any parts. It's like there's nothing there. But now I can actually, having done it multiple times, not consistently, now I can sort of feel the energy. So it's there. It's subtle, and so you have to kind of practice to just get to the practice, if you understand what I'm saying.
It's like you have to tune yourself into that subtleness. It's like you're not used to paying attention to that level of energy. So it's really hard to get to. But once you can get to it and you've tuned yourself into it, it's like, oh. Yeah, and I'm with you, Mary. It's taken me a long time to get here. I know people that are just like so in tune with other people's energy that it's hard for them to exist in the world. They're just like, oh. I'm a little bit less in tune like that, but I'm getting there. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's like overwhelming. All right. Well, it's 8:00. So, Marcia, one more thing.
Well, just, with this little tremor that I have, and I can feel the energy, and it used to be very negative, but I'm learning, and I don't know. I don't have a problem feeling the energy now. And it's actually a welcoming thing, so there's a balance here that I'm learning.
Good for you.
I can feel it actually throughout. When I'm really in a deep meditation, it's there, and it's like, whoa, everything. So,
yeah, you have a little gift of being able to access it better than some of us. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful, energy-filled day.
Thank you.
Namaste, everybody.
Thank you, Kate, as always.
Thank you. Everybody have a good week.
Yeah.